Magomed Ankalaev, the dark horse, man, the guy who has been almost denied a title opportunity. Now, has he fought the stiffest opposition, AJ? No, right?
No,
Let's be
I
real.
mean, not the stiffest. Yeah, not the stiff, but not the cream of the crop, if you will.
Pereira, knock him for the lack of wrestling or whatever the case may be. Yuri Prohashka a couple times, Jamal Hill, Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya. The hit list is for real, man. You cannot deny that. I don't care if wrestling is involved or not. The only difference is Magomed Ankalaev, you spent a year fighting Johnny Walker. You spent a year fighting Iwan Kutalaba. You got to win over Anthony Smith. You got to win over Alexander Rakic, which I think is one of the better wins in his resume. And that draw, remember, to Jan Blachowicz, right? Stiff opposition. But I do think that this is going to be the big test, man. I think that there's going to be excuses set on both sides, AJ. Let's talk about that really quickly. Before we jump into numbers, right? Alex Pereira wins. Magomed Ankalaev does huge things for him. That solidifies him as, some would say, the GOAT. Crazy conversation that we're having, but sure, right? Ankalaev, given that he's not the most popular guy, if he wins, AJ, would this not set it up to say, oh, but you beat Pereira and he can't wrestle, so obviously we all knew, like something of that nature. Do you anticipate a narrative like that happening?
Especially if he's able to hold Pereira down, then it shows he finally faced a wrestler that's able to actually get to wrestling instead of wanting to stand and bang. Like that is a narrative that's going into this, especially with all the stuff going on with Ramadan and the no eating situation, but then they are eating, and who knows what's actually happening. There's a lot of talk happening between both camps and the media that's out there, so I expect not only that, but a lot of other excuses from each side.
Yeah, man, and that's kind of my point here, is that at the end of the day, right, like the narrative is setting itself up to where I think this is kind of win-win for Alex Pereira. This is kind of a lose-lose situation for Magomed Ankalaev, which makes all of this muddy. And what do we say every single time when you have big fight feels like this? The hardest part about this is just cutting through the narrative and actually looking at the fight for what it is. So that's what I want to assess here today. AJ, the Open. It's pretty much the same at where we're at right now. Minus 115 for Alex Pereira, minus 105 dog for Magomed Ankalaev. And I'm surprised to see it, given that we all know the wrestling is the big hole in Pereira's game. Excuse me. Now, the other thing we have to consider, super active is Alex Pereira. Not very active is Magomed Ankalaev. I don't think freshness or being wear and tear, I don't think any of that is a real concern. What I am concerned with, what I should say is, I think Pereira, man, he's in a nice groove. He's fighting every couple of months. He's saving promotions. He's got good graces. And I think that he's fought a lot of different style of opponents. But we found one thing to be evident here, and let me know if you agree with this. I think that you can't find many flaws in Pereira's game, but the one flaw you find is capitalizing when he gets over aggressive and bullying him. When he gets pushed back, that's when you see a Khalil Roundtree actually have success, right? He's pushing him back. He's bullying the bully. If Magomed Ankalaev can use his threat of wrestling, the only real fighter to have a real legitimate threat, aside from like Jan Blachowicz, I think that he can put Alex Pereira on the back foot. What does a 5-round fight look like with him on the back foot?
Man, it'd be an interesting look, because the stoicism and the poise that Pereira brings to this fight, that's a lot of his ethos, right? That's a lot of what goes into why people like him. You see him skirting back, ducking, turning corners, and almost like we saw last weekend, right? Getting on your bike and almost running a little bit. That's changed the entire narrative of the UFC. Nobody's excited to watch him fight anymore. Nothing's going on. He's almost forced into living how he or fighting how he lives, right? Like, stand toe to toe. We're gonna swing it out, bang it out, and then if you're able to take him down and hold him down, kind of changes everything. So I do think there's a lot that could have exciting moments for Ankalaev and have a good narrative for him. But at the same point, if Pereira doesn't fight the normal way, then there's more excuses to be made for it.
Exactly. But when we're just looking at like a results perspective, though, right? If he's fighting off of that back foot, if Alex Pereira has to fight that style of fight, a couple things get taken away. It's a little harder to capitalize on the calf kicks, and it's a little harder to land that coveted check hook, right? I mean, you could hit it off of a counter or something like that. But on Ankalaev, what makes his style, I think, really tricky is he can be in your face, but he's not throwing a bunch of punches. He's not throwing a bunch of strikes. He's just kind of heading you off, finding the timing, waiting for you to overcommit, and given that he's a southpaw, coming over with that big left hand. I want to talk to you about that big left hand here today, AJ, because you have to think, Pereira, his mindset is going to have to be, I have to avoid the takedown. I know this guy is actually like for real about it. One thing you notice about Pereira is when he does his takedown defense, hips back, right? Chin forward. That is literally lining yourself up perfectly for an Ankalaev straight, which is like one of, I'm not even, listen, I'm a fan of Ankalaev, but let's be real. The dude got like two main strikes. It's like a big left hand, he's got a big hook, and he's got a body kick. That's like pretty much what his game is. It's very textbook, very bread and butter. What problems do you see Alex Paeta running into, or do you think that it's just as simple as stuff to take down, hit him with some hooks, get him out of there?
Yeah, obviously, stuff to take downs, hit him with hooks, get him out of there. That is the game plan for Paeta if you're looking to go forward. But I think another X factor that Ankalaev presents is staying with it, right? Staying in the mix. Not a lot of people are looking just to stand and trade with Paeta, and I don't think Magomed's just going to sit there and look to trade the ones and twos, but he is going to be there trying to mix things up. Like you said, Derek, cutting off the cage, going forward. And if Paeta is forced to fight off the back foot, we haven't seen him have too much success doing that, especially with counter strikes, right? If, let's say, Magomed does find a hole open, which I don't think there's going to be much, but if he does find one, we might see an Izzy, right? An Izzy fight where he just knocks him out. Next thing you know, he's on the ground. Flash KOs can happen, and Magomed does have the power to get it done. It's just what worries me is him overcommitting to specifically just taking down Paeta, because that's his only route to win. If he's overcommitting, then he's just worried about one thing. Paeta doesn't have much to worry about besides that one thing.
It's funny because I thought you were going to go into a different direction with the overcommitting. I see one pretty big flaw in Ankalaev's game with the overcommitment of that straight left. Leaves it out there hanging just a little bit too long. And I'm like, man, if you do that against Paeta, he will get you out of there. You kind of have to fight almost a perfect fight for Ankalaev. Only difference is if you get rocked, you have to take him down. The other narrative is that Ankalaev doesn't shoot takedowns. Let's be real. He averages, if you're taking a look at the numbers, less than a takedown per 15 minutes. But you can say that he has landed 8 takedowns in his last 10 fights. So the takedown threat is there. I don't think he's just going to stand with Alex Paeta. I think this is going to be a mixed martial arts affair. So let's talk about the actual results, man. Where's the value at right here? If you're taking a look at some of these props, I would say if you're looking at a submission for Ankalaev, which I think is one of the things you have to account. I think it'd be silly not to at least think about it. Plus 950. AJ, they're giving the man no shot. I'm thinking ground and pound TKO or submission from the grappling edge. Otherwise, we just pretty much bet points. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking at points as well, especially with the minus 115, minus 105. You're basically looking at even money right there with whoever you're looking to fight with. Unless you're looking at a TKO or, like you said, Derek, the submission for an Ankalaev corner. I do think a TKO for the Pereira side is likely to happen, but I do give a lot of credit to the chin and the prowess that Magomed Ankalaev provides right here. I like the money line overall.
Dog, 4 knockouts in his last 5 fights. Pereira's knocking out the majority of the fights that he's had in the UFC. I definitely do think that if Ankalaev can't get the takedown, I don't think that this is like a drag him out decision for where Pereira wins. I think he definitely wins via knockout. Let's talk about the rounds, though. Under 3.5, minus 135, over 3.5, plus 105. These are live odds right now. Which one are you taking?
Ooh. I like the over, Derek, excuse me. I like the over on this one, especially with how I expect styles to collide, the grits to be tested. I do think it's going to be over that 3.5. It makes sense.
Safest bet that you can make then, over 3.5 if you're not convinced on who you think is going to win. I think you look at Ankalaev here as a pure dog play. And you look at him as a dog play because I think that this is a rightful favorite who you're basically getting even odds at. So, you have to smash if you're an Ankalaev bettor. But again, if you're on the fence, over 3.5 rounds is the best bet that you can make here. I don't think it gets more complicated than that. Again, folks, half the battle that we have here is literally just cutting through the narrative and figuring out in a pure fisticuffs, pure fist fight, who wins. I have to do it. It's off merit. It's off of history. It's off of legacy. The dark horse, Magomed Ankalaev, and new at UFC 313. But AJ, you're rolling with tried and true, yeah?
Tried and true, and still Alex Paeta, and I do like that TKO. But I think it's going to come in the later rounds.
All right, folks, there is your main event. We had to cut through a lot of nonsense to get there. All of the rest ones, we're going to be talking a lot more about the actual numbers. And let's just start